Welcome to Pass the Outlet, episode 41. I'm your host, Michael Benjamin, joined as always by my wingman, Chris Patrick. It's official. Phoenix feels immortalized once again. Chris, how are you feeling tonight, man?
I'm feeling good. What a weekend it was for Valley basketball, if you will, with the induction of Mike D'Antoni and Amar'e Stoudemire and Diana Taurasi into the Ring of Honor. Much deserved. We have a lot to get into, Mike. How you doing, bro?
I'm doing great. You said it. What a weekend it truly was for the legends of the Valley. And man, Chris, NBA training camp is just over 6 weeks away. So there's still some time, but we know basketball is still breathing. Tonight, obviously, Chris is going to help us break it all down with news from around the net in the social swish. And on the outlet point guard, we'll break down the Hall of Fame career of a man who truly stood tall and talented. But if you're here with us live, watching the playback on Valley Sports Plug YouTube, or listening on podcast streaming services, you know we love y'all. Make sure you subscribe to the VSP YouTube channel. Leave a like on this video and click that notification bell so you can stay up to date with everything going on here at Valley Sports Plug. But first, we do have a very special guest with us tonight. I've had the pleasure to share the floor with him, but he's been in the gym with some true Valley and NBA legends. We're definitely going to have to get into some of those stories, but most importantly, he's heading into his final year as student manager for the Arizona State men's basketball team and doing his part to usher in the new era under Coach Randy Bennett. And it's not his first time joining us on the VSP network, but it is his first time joining us on Pass the Outlet. I know this is one that Chris and I have been waiting for. So please welcome Arizona State men's basketball student manager, Alaaldin. Alan, how are you, man? How you doing tonight? Appreciate your time, man.
Couldn't be better. Thank you guys for having me on. I'm so excited.
We got to get into it. And when we do, we always start from the beginning. So right off the rip, just give us your basketball story and why it's a passion of yours, man.
Yeah, so originally, growing up, basketball was never really one of my main sports. It was mainly baseball, football. Played those up until about 4th grade, 5th grade. And then something clicked, man. Watching, I think it was James Harden was like one of the first players I watched consistently. And, I really started getting the Suns more and more. And it was the first season I started following. It was like 2016 where they had just drafted Dragon Bender, Marquise Chris. And I just remember all the hype around those two. Obviously, hindsight, we know that didn't really work out. But yeah, that's kind of the start, like just starting to be more open. Baseball got really slow for me. Football, it was something I was always going to be a fan of, but never something I was going to play, So I thought basketball would be something that my dad was a big basketball fan growing up as well, still is. And he kind of ushered me into the sport. So ever since, I tried playing it and, watched it. And then from there, it just kept growing and growing. And my fandom, whether it was players, teams, it just exploded from there. So, yeah, earliest memories of basketball is, probably around 4th, 5th grade. I mean, I'd watch it with my dad, but not really understand it. I remember watching some of LeBron and those Heedle teams. But, yeah, that's pretty much it.
I think that's like probably real relatable to a lot of people. I know, like, personally, I grew up playing soccer. That's like one of the first sports that a lot of people play. And then you kind of like basketball, I feel like it takes a little bit more like, hand-eye coordination. You got to be a little more mature. So that definitely resonates with me. But Alan, Mike has seen you showcase your skills with the infamous McDonald squad, and I'm sure you're getting runs in over at the Sun Devil Fitness Complex in Tempe. So as a hooper, how would you describe your style of play, and do you emulate your game off anyone in particular?
100%. For the first question, I would describe my game as, I say I like to get to my spots. I know my spots on the floor. I love to shoot the three ball, whether that's off the dribble or off the catch. I feel like I have good range. But the mid range is where I live at. I do a lot of work in the mid range, whether that's coming off a post up or just a ball screen. Like a lot of my favorite players, which kind of ties into the next question. My three favorite players kind of ever, I would say around like 3 of the 5 is KD's my favorite player ever. Obviously, we got Devin Booker, and then Carmelo Anthony. So like those guys live in the mid range, and pretty much everything that like they do, I try to do on the floor. Like that's how I've gotten better. Is I just watch them and kind of just steal all their stuff. But I would say a guy like describe my game, get to my spots. I think I'm an underrated passer, and getting to the rim, I think I'm super crafty because I'm not the most athletic guy, right? I'm not going to jump over you. I'm not going to, get a ton of separation, but I focus and like work on my craft a lot. So in those moments I can, be crafty, and I just feel like the fundamentals of the game I have down to a T. So that's what I would say. Just find my spots, play efficient, and, not try to do too much.
Efficiency is key. Alan, I really like when you get into the lane and create that separation by giving a little bit of a shoulder nudge, and sometimes you'll hit them with that spin and, hit that floater going backwards. So I love to see it. There's Chuz. What's up, Chuz? Of course, Chuz has seen Alan at work as well, but of course we know you can't hit the hardwood without the shoes. You can see it behind me. I got a decent there.
I got my whole.
You got some too.
Over here. Yeah.
There we go. I see. Oh my God, I see the McDonald's jersey back there too.
There we go, right there. Yeah, yep.
But it's part of the territory. Shoes, basketball, it coincides together perfectly. But here we like to kind of keep up on what's new, the improved silhouettes, what's trending in the game nowadays. But we got to know, what's your all-time favorite hoop shoe, and then what are you primarily playing in nowadays?
Yeah, so it's gonna be kind of crazy, but my all-time favorite hoop shoe, silhouette-wise, is the PG1. The PG1 to me is the cleanest looking basketball shoe I've ever seen. And I remember when it first came out, all the hype around it. And PG was like one of my favorite players at the time. Not as much anymore. Like in Pacers, PG was one of my favorite players. Once he left, I didn't really like him as much as the way he carried himself. But that's another discussion for another day. But the PG1 is my favorite looking hoop shoe of all time. Never got a chance to own a pair. I have the PG4s. I bring those out very rarely. Great hoop shoe as well. But my favorite hoop shoe to play in, by far and away the best hoop shoe I've ever played in. And mind you, I have like around 50 shoes back here that y'all, there's another half that y'all can't see. Played a lot of hoop shoes in my time. Nothing, and this is going to sound biased, but I promise you, objectively speaking, I'm not being biased. The Book 1 is the best hoop shoe I've ever played in. The combination of comfort and traction I've never seen in a hoop shoe, ever. I would recommend that hoop shoe to anybody, whether it's outdoors, indoors. Like, it's even if you want to wear it casually, it's so comfortable. I love the materials they use, and just I was blown away by it. Truly, I don't really like the Book 2 as much, but the bar was set so high by the Book 1 to me, it was hard to replicate. So yeah, the Book 1.
Honestly, that's not surprising to me, especially from NBA players, because it's consistently been in the top 10 since it released. So, I didn't have the same experience. I love it more for off the floor, but I've had a better experience with the Book 2's on court feel. And maybe that's just because there's a little bit more tech for the basketball side of it. And I am a bigger guy, so, I got to watch out for any kind of ankle issues. Yeah. But Chris, are you still like primarily playing in your Kyries, or have you been busting out the Book 2's anymore?
Yeah, so I don't know, man. I might hang up the Book 2's. I've given them a few runs, but they like rub my like my bone like on my ankle a little bit, and I've ended up having like a scab there each time. I do like the Book 1's. Mike, you got me those lilac purples, and I do enjoy playing in those. So that was my kind of off the script follow-up question I had for Alan, is like, I know you. I don't know if you have more than one pair of book ones, but do you have a favorite colorway, or what is what is the one you've been playing in?
Yeah, I do actually. So I have more than one. So I have two pairs. So I have the Air Max 95 ones. So the gray with like the neon green bottoms. And then I have the rattlesnakes. So the white with the like the rattlesnake Nike logo. And I'm not gonna lie, those are my favorite to play in, but I really, really wore them like way too much and they like got real beat. So like I recently just buy a shoe I just bought a shoe cleaner and like try to restore them as much as I could. I did a decent job, but like I think I wore them like too much because, like I said, like when I first got them, it's the only hoop shoe I ever wore, and I'm playing like every day, and like there's nothing that even with like through all the wear and tear, the feel was still the same to me. So it's like why not still wear them? So I'd say the book one rattlesnake, and I do have a pair of the book twos. I have the like the denim book twos, so it looks like the jean kind of. So those are cool. I've only worn them like 3 times. So I remember talking to Mike at some of our games, about them and stuff, see how he liked them. But I need to give him some more burn before I have a real full opinion.
I feel that. I feel that. Mike, I got, as you know, I got the book 2 Spiridons that have the mesh. And I think if you got a pair like that with the mesh, I think it would be worth giving the book 2s another shot. Could work out with you, like you said, with the ankle support. But Alan, as I understand it, you truly are one of the few everything Arizona sports fans. Can you give us a quick history of how the Valley teams became ingrained in your identity and your general thoughts on the current state of Arizona fandom?
100%. I think honestly, it just stems from like me being I consider myself a very loyal person, right? Like I'm ride or die for my family, friends, right? And I think it applies the same in my fandom. Like I remember growing up, right, and you'd have those fans. I grew up in an era, right? Like obviously we all grew up during this time, but for me, that like the time when we were kids was the Warriors, the Cavs. You got in football, it was the Patriots, the Seahawks, right? So it's like I never really had a liking to that. Like, I wanted to stay true. I love where I'm from. I love Arizona. I've been here my whole life. And, like, it's funny because everyone would tell me, like, yeah, you could be an Arizona sports fan, but, it's a rough life. But, I didn't really care. Like, I think it just stems from my loyalty and, like, um, it's something that I take very, very seriously. I'd say it stems from my loyalty. In terms of the current state of Arizona sports, I think it's I do think we're underrated as a sports state. I think we get too much flack. I do think we're a consistent, like, good performer. It's just not like all the sports at the same time, if that makes sense. It's like usually like one team will be doing good or two teams will be doing good and the other two won't be. They'll be disappointed. So I think this year it's kind of more the same. Like Suns, Diamondbacks, we have real expectations, right? Diamondbacks, brutal loss tonight, but we expect them, we want them, and we expect them at this point to get into the playoffs, right? And we know what happened last time they got into the playoffs. Suns, they shocked the NBA world last year. A team that was projected to win 25 games won 45, right? They're a 7 seed. Um, I think we have more real expectations. We could collectively agree for them this year off continuity alone. Um, and then going to college sports, I mean, Arizona football as much. I don't like them at all. But, they both had good years last year, real expectations for those teams. And then the really, unfortunately, we all know who, like, the sorriest team in the state is right now. It's the Cardinals, which is like, it's hard to admit, but we're a laughing stock. But things are looking up, though. Things are looking up. But, I would say the current state is we're in a good spot. Like, I think college sports, especially, are really, really getting really popular. And, like, you know, Arizona State football is, they're transcending the valley. We're activating the valley, like Kenny says. I mean, we just got a huge donation from Brian Sweat. I think he's involved with NASCAR, $10 million, right? Like this program is really, really like bringing butts to seats, and Kenny's like, really, really involved with the city, and we haven't really had a coach that's this like at this level, that's local, that's known around nationwide, and has been this good. So it's like, I think it's in a good spot. I truly think we're in a good spot. Future is bright for the Cardinals. but we just gotta be patient. But we never know. We never know how it's gonna go. But I think we're in a good spot, man. I don't really care what anyone says. Like, there's always something to take away. Like, that's my thing. Like, there's always a positive to take away, and there's positives at every turn. With all our teams.
Alan, I hope that the optimism that you're bringing today starts to rub off a little bit more on us, and specifically, I might say Chris Patrick, but no, I won't throw you under the bus too much. It's funny that you do bring up when one or two teams are good in the Valley, the other team is not. It's so funny. And once again, it follows Mr. Patrick's rule of three, which specifically correlates to if your team is playing and your fantasy sports team is playing and you got bets on the table, you can only get 2 out of 3. You can't get all 3 at the same time. But man, you really are one of the last of the Mohicans when it comes to Arizona sports fans, Alan. We're a little bit older than you. So to my surprise, when you told me you were all Arizona everything, I couldn't believe it, because there's just, especially with the new era of fans here in the Valley, that's just really not the case. But I had to think to myself, there has to be some kind of like defining experience that you either watched in person, saw on the TV screen, met a player. Like, do you have that one experience that truly solidified you for being a lifetime Arizona sports fan?
Yeah, 100%. I have many, but the one that stands out the most, I mean, it's hard not to say the Suns in 21. I mean, like, especially for me, I know you guys saw the Amar'e and Nash era, right? And, like, I had never seen that. Like, I was born, right, but I wasn't into basketball at the time. So the era that I started watching, like I mentioned earlier, was Dragon Bender, Marquise Chris, Josh Jackson, Tyler Ulis, draft bus after draft bus, 21 season after 21 season. And I still loved it. I was still involved fandom wise, and I didn't watch every game, but it was hard. It was hard to watch every game, just how bad they were. But I'll never forget, being the Clippers in the Western Conference Finals and getting in Game 6 and Chris Paul 42 points on the road in the closeout game. And, it was so spontaneous. I remember I don't know if you guys know the Twitter account AZ, like Bird Gang Travel. I'm sure you guys have seen that. And they said Suns are landing at whatever, Sky Harbor Airport at this time. Like, they're allowing people to come. And my sister and one of my closest friends were like, you know what? Let's go. Like, this is a once in a lifetime experience. Like, I don't even know if I'm going to see the Suns get back to the finals for the rest of my life. Like, so I always remember driving there just like so much like filled with emotion, because think like I said, no playoffs, and like the bubble was great and all, but we still didn't make it. No playoffs to the finals in 1 year. So like that Lakers home game in Game 1 where it was rocking, right? That was my first ever time watching a playoff game. I didn't know what to expect. I did not know what it was like watching your team in the playoffs. So it's just like all the combination of all the losing and like sticking with the team, and people like at school say, Alan, why are you a Suns fan? They suck. And I'm like, y'all can look at me now, so it's like that's one that stands out, just seeing all the guys in their cars and all the people coming together. And I remember I bought the Western Conference Finals champion shirt, and all that stuff is just, I'll never forget it. And I remember like from that point on, I said, like, I'm locked in. I was locked in before, but like, I'm not going nowhere. And I always say to myself, if the Suns ever win a chip, I will cry like a child, like a baby. Like, no lie, I would cry like real tears, because this team and like these fans, this community, like, means so much to me. So that's something that always will stick with me for sure, is 2021. And I know it's a cliche answer, right? But it was such a big moment. It was such a big moment for the Valley, right? Like after COVID as well, So I would say that's the defining moment. Players wise, I got to meet Book at his camp. That was 2019. That was really crazy. I'll never forget that. It was crazy how it happened. It was at the Sun Devil Fitness Complex, and I was just waiting for my mom to pick me up, and let alone he came walking down the hallway, signed my hat, right? Never forget it. Cardinals training camps, I have good memories with those as well. Chandler Jones signed my hat, got just stuff like that. But the standalone one to me is 2021, NBA Finals.
I love it, man. And like it really resonates with me how you mentioned like your loyalty, like you're loyal to the soil and the valley and all the sports teams. And I feel like when you are loyal through like the bad times, it makes those highs like even more enjoyable to and like validating that your team has finally reached that point that you've been hoping that they could get to and maybe come up short, like you said, those 2021 win seasons. Man, if you were getting into the Suns around that time, the Bender era, that's also the Eric Bledsoe era. And if you were at any games, you might have heard Mike and I doing some heckling from the rafters. And I don't know, I might have had one too many and yelled at Eric Bledsoe a few times, but that's just another story for another day.
Honestly, Eric Bledsoe was my first ever favorite NBA player.
No shot.
Oh,
No
man.
shot.
I love Bled. Like the Killer Bees, like that was like my gamer tag. Like it was like my nickname, and then 1-2 for Eric Bledsoe, Devin Booker. Like I don't care. Obviously his exit was brutal, and like I understand that, but Bled was like one of my favorite Suns ever. Like I put him like because he was just my favorite first player because he was there before Book. So I don't know. I get the Bledsoe slander. Like I understand, but he always gonna have a special place in my heart for me. Baby LeBron. It's baby LeBron.
Baby
They
LeBron.
call him that for a reason.
I mean, the talent is undeniable, and it's funny that we've gone from like a Kentucky built team to like a Michigan built team. Again, another conversation for another day. But Alan, I know, I know, I don't know if anyone else knows, you joined us on VSP Live right around the time Devin Booker changed to number 15, but we didn't really have a chance to get into the details about what's to come this year for the Phoenix Suns. Why don't you give us your general thoughts on what's been going on, like your thoughts on the recent offseason moves to 2026, 2027, and your expectations?
Yeah, so it's funny. I've been talking with a lot of friends the last couple of days talking hoops, and I feel like I want to maybe get your guys' opinion on this, but I would be like really really disappointed if this wasn't a top 6 team in the West next year. Like I genuinely be very disappointed. I love what we did this offseason. I'm a big Miles Bridges guy. I mean, my mom's side of the family is Michigan State. They love Michigan State. So obviously, I know the off court issues are, within themselves, but on the court, I love his game, and I think it's a clear upgrade from what we had. Like Royce is great, and shout out to Royce, held it down. The 2.5 years he was here, and appreciate his IQ, his defense, his willingness to shoot the open threes, and that ball fake. We're all gonna miss that ball fake. That ball fake was special, right? So, but Miles is like the Suns of old would never have a. I've been wanting an athlete at the 4 for so long. We finally got one, right? Like we finally have an athlete. He can space. He can attack a closeout, finish over you, right? Like, love the Miles pickup. It hurt. It hurt a lot giving up Grayson, but you have to give up good to get good to great back, and like fit wise, I think he's gonna fit right in. But love the addition of Luke Kennard as well. I think we got him on a great contract. 2 for 13 is a steal. He isn't quite Grayson in terms of the playmaking and what Grayson brought off the bounce, but I think Luke has his own specialties. I think Luke can shoot a mid-range jumper a lot better than Grayson Allen can, and he can create within that like 15-foot area probably a little bit better. But if you put them in a vacuum, I think they're pretty similar. And we got him for such a cheaper price, and we still got the guy that we were looking for in Miles, and clear upgrade at a positional need. I think that's always good in the NBA. And the trend in the league now is continuity, right? Like the Knicks, that's a team that, yes, they made moves to supplement what they had, though. That's the thing. Like they brought everything back, and they added OG, they added Mikal, but that core of, they made the Brunson contract, right? They drafted well. They made moves on the margin, and they kept trying, and it finally worked, right? And I think continuity now is going to be the new wave of the NBA. Growing up, for me, stars would switch every single, off season. And yeah, that still happens, but with this new CBA and like free agency being kind of dead, like teams are going to be valuing their continuity a lot more and valuing, building their core and, trusting their culture, trusting their coaching staffs. So I think that's on our side as well, that the Suns, they got better and they supplemented pieces to the core that they already had, right? They drafted Koa Pete. That's another young guy that they can bring in and build up, right? But the nucleus and the identity is still there. And these guys are going to be able to fit in with that identity And I think it's going to be a seamless fit. So I have high expectations. I do think this is going to be a playoff contender. I think they're a year or two out from being a championship contender, but this is going to be a good basketball team, guys. And I'm really excited to watch, another year of a full year of Jalen Green. I think this is kind of put up or shut up time for him, but I want to see him healthy, before I make any assumptions. But I'm super excited, guys. I love we got Colin back on a great deal. We got Goody back on a great deal. Mark is on a tradable contract. Come on, Rasheer are going to get more tick this year. Come on, looks really good in summer league. Rasheer's, going to be a rotational guy. Consistent rotational guy. So I think they're doing it the right way. They're building this thing the right way. Continuity matters. Pay your guys always. That's another thing I say. And yeah, I got expectations, man. I do think we could be better than 6. I do think there's a world we are, but a lot of stuff has to go right for that.
I think you said the key word that a lot of Phoenix Suns fans and especially the brass are really relying on this year when it comes down to continuity. Bringing those young pieces back that were difference makers like Colin and Jordan. Hopefully you get consistent healthiness from Mark Williams and Jalen Green. The sky's the limit, I think, for this team, especially with the pieces that they did bring back and the athleticism that they're gaining into the fold. So, Alan, I'm aligned with you, man. I think the expectations this year is you have to be 6 or higher. Like in the play-in again might be a semi-failure of a season. We'll see, obviously, how things go if they do make the playoffs and whatnot. But with that being said, I don't know. You might have to step in for Mr. Patrick next month because he's going to be in España. So, but we'll see. Maybe we break down more Phoenix Suns basketball, but it's time to get into what you're really here for, which is Arizona State basketball. I was a Suns ball boy during the Nash era, but I feel like your gig is kind of way more hands-on with the day-to-day events of Arizona State men's basketball team than mine ever was as a ball boy. So just first, right off the rip, how did you get this opportunity? How did it come about for you to join as a student manager?
Yeah, so one of my good friends from freshman year up until now, he does photography for the team. So he does content creation stuff. He works with the social team. And, we had always talked about whether the current state of, Arizona State men's basketball. And he knew how much of a fan I was. My freshman, sophomore year, I go to a bunch of home games, pretty much, honestly, all of them, And, we'd always talk about the team, and he'd tell me, what's going on behind the scenes, yada, yada, yada. And I was like, I would love to, be a student manager. Is there any way, you know anybody, or, is there any way you could, get me an application? And from there, he did. So he sent me an application. He put in a good word for me with some of the previous staff. And, I remember on my application, I wrote a lot of, I think, I wrote 600 words and tell me why you'd be a good fit. I really took it seriously, and I told him how much I love this school. I told him how we could be a powerhouse. I'll do anything for this program. It's a program that means so much to me. Early morning, long nights, and from there, our head manager, I interviewed with him, and he hired me then. It was a 2-week waiting period after that, but that's kind of the story. Just being lucky enough to have a connection within the program that put in a good word for me. And from there, I, tried my best to stand out, and, the rest is history. I'm here now.
That's so awesome, man. And growing up, that's one thing my mom always told me is it's sometimes it can be about who you know. And not only that, you got to take advantage of the opportunities you have. So for you to take it seriously, get your name out there, do the networking, that's awesome, man. I'm happy to hear that. And we know Tempe and the Valley is a hotbed for off-season trainings. And we've heard some of the big names you've had the opportunity to share the court with for workouts. Who are some of the biggest names and maybe surprising stars you've been able to work with?
Man, I could go on and on, but obviously James Harden stands out, alum. I'll never forget him playing pickup with our guys last summer, and just seeing that level of athlete, seeing that level of basketball player. And don't get me wrong, D1 hoopers, it doesn't matter what D1, D2, D3, they're all insanely good, right? Insanely skilled, but there's really levels. I'm telling you, this guy did not shoot the ball one time and had the biggest impact on the floor. I don't think I've ever seen that in my life. right? And just seeing James, like, that's a legend, right? NBA legend, a guy that, you know, his pictures on the facility. Like, the reason we're Adidas school is because of James, was one of the main reasons because of James Harden. Like, this is a guy whose numbers retired with the program. He's in the student athlete center with, you know, his jersey, and he has his whole mural exhibit, right? So just seeing all that, and it's right in front of you, and seeing him, you know, what it's like, you know, how he works out, the way, you know, him being that close and watching him play, right? James will always stick out. All my interactions with him been a really stand-up guy, super cool. Next, we just recently had Shaden Sharp comes through a ton. He came last summer, and his workouts are pretty rigorous. He'll do like 3 days, so he'll do morning. I think he'll lift and shoot, but it's like a combination of lifting, shooting. Jalen Duren was recently at our gym, and we've had Devin Carter. Jericho Sims. The Thunder would practice because Lou Dort is an alum of ours, so Lou would come through with the, you know, you see Shea, J-Dub, Chess. So it really goes on and on, man. Like the Jazz, you know, would come here, are going to come here for probably there when they play the Suns. Minnesota, you know, they'll use our facility as well. So it's pretty crazy, man, especially as much of an NBA fan. You know, it's hard not to get starstruck. You know, seeing or being around all these guys, you're just walking around and, hey, Anthony Edwards is in my gym right now. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander's in my gym right now. James Harden's in my gym right now. You know, it's really crazy. But I've been really blessed. You know, Jericho Sims is one of probably the guy I've gotten the closest with. You know, that's the guy, you know, we text every now and then. He helped me and my friend, you know, he sent us to the Suns-Bucks game. So that's been like the coolest thing. And his closest friend that's with him, he's not in the league, but he plays in China, and his name's Ferran Hunt. He played at SMU. He's had stops around the league as well. Those two guys have been like the most standout, and guys like I consider, you know, a friend of mine. So that's been like one of the coolest parts of the job for sure. And just seeing these guys work and how hard they work in the craft, you know, how serious they take their craft, and being able to help, you know, is super cool. I'll never forget helping Jericho out, and I had the pad, and we were doing like post fades, right? And then we transitioned to like post fade finishes, where he was just, you know, like attacking the rim. This guy, one shoulder to my chest with the pad on, a big pad, put me on my butt. Like, I'm a big guy. That's hard. It's hard to move me as it is. He made me look like a fly. Like, you know, that's when I knew. I was like, oh my goodness, you know, it's a different level. It's levels. Like I said, go back to what I said with James. There's levels to this, whether it's on the core, whether it's physicality, diet, like it's just the lifestyle, you know, it's crazy, man, but super blessed, and it's given me more of appreciation of players, not just players, but humans, you know, like these are regular guys. That goes for coaches, players. They're just regular people, man. Like you can talk to them, they'll be nice to you, all that good stuff.
And it's awesome to see that you've started to kind of grow relationships with some of these guys, right? You know, most of these guys are hoop heads just like you and me, but they play at the highest level. I remember when Jericho came into the league, and he was, I don't know, was he drafted by the Knicks? I can't remember specifically,
Yes.
but he was just one of those freak athletes. So we're pulling for him for sure in Milwaukee.
Yeah, I've never seen a dude jump that high in my life. We did a workout where we did a little a drill where he did 6 dunks back to consecutively, and he run from the half court line, catch, dunk, and then he go to the other one, catch, dunk. I've never seen a human that athletic and like that close in my life before. He's got springs in his feet, and he's 6'11", 240 doing that. Like his head's above the rim every time. Like it's insane, man. Like truly, I've never seen. I'm still in shock, like because like I replay it in my head sometimes, and I'm like, this guy's like flying. Like you know, we see it on TV, but when you see it that close, it's like, and he doing windmills. You know, the tomahawks, like making it look easy.
Yeah, and man, he's a monster too. Like you said, 6'11". That's what makes it even more impressive, the athleticism and the level at some of these guys too. But hopefully, you know, he's going to get some extra opportunities, I think, now in Milwaukee that Giannis is gone. So if he's a friend of you, he's a friend of ours. So we're pulling for him this year, and that's okay. They're in the Eastern Conference too, so they can
Yeah.
they can
Only
be
2
good.
times
You know
a year
what
we
I'm
see
saying?
him. Only one time.
Well, only 2 times would be fine.
We did lose that game, but we had a great game versus us, so it was like bittersweet.
There we go. But, the new era of ASU men's basketball is officially underway. We know that Coach Bennett has been making moves, but one of the most important and impressive ones to me was how they're getting started early on giving back to the youth and community. And Alan, you talked with us. We put it on our socials and tried to blast it out there for you guys. But you had the first ever Randy Bennett basketball camp at the end of July. I got to ask, man, how was that experience working with Randy and the staff?
It was great. Like I kind of mentioned earlier, like going to that camp, Devin Booker's camp. I got similar vibes, from that. But this time, instead of being a camper, I was a coach. And that's something, I always wanted to do. Like, I love being around kids. I love giving back to you, especially when it comes to basketball, teaching them the game. So I had a great time, truly had a great time. We had a lot of good energy. I tried to bring the energy. My voice was gone after that week. Literally could barely hear me talk. Very tired, long days, but it was worth it. Like as long as I could make an impact on a young Hooper's, life, then it was all worth it. But we had a great time. We had tons of energy, competitive games, trash talking, whatever. The beauty of basketball was on display right there. So it was great. It was a great experience. And I promise next year it's going to be really, really popping after the season we have. So I'm looking forward to that.
I'm glad to hear it, man. Because I think of my own experience, and I'm sure same for you guys. Like going to those types of camps when you were younger, those memories they stick with you. So I'm sure you made an impact on some of those young hoopers that are coming up. And of course, new eras always bring excitement, and we can't wait to see what Coach Bennett and the new crew can bring to the table. What can the Valley expect from ASU basketball in the coming 2026-2027 season?
First thing I'm gonna say is we're gonna play tough. Like we're not gonna be a pushover. We're gonna guard our butts off. We're gonna shoot the lights out with the ball. We're gonna take a ton of threes. I just think we're gonna guard. We're gonna play super instinctual. We're gonna high IQ, run our sets. Play to a T, and we know the type of brand of basketball we want to play. We want to play tough, gritty, intelligent basketball, and I just think the Valley is going to really, really like and cater to this team. It's just the way the intellect that these guys are going to play with, I think is going to be super, super rewarding. But just expect guys to compete, man. Just play hard, little things, diving on the floor, all things that, you preach to these guys in the summer, they're going to go out and do it. So I'd say that's what you guys should be expecting.
Well, we're very excited for this upcoming season of Arizona State basketball. I know the Miller brothers are too. One of these days, we're going to have you join in and chat everything ASU with them. Chris and I will definitely be out at Desert Financial Arena this year, keeping an eye out for you and wishing you the best of luck for your senior season, man. But I want to give you the floor, man. Any final thoughts, whatever you'd like? What does the future hold for Alan? Are you thinking about maybe staying in the sports world? It sounds like maybe you are, but parting thoughts as you work towards your final season as student manager, man. The floor is yours.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, obviously I'm a sports journalism major. Media is something that I would like to do, but if I'm being honest, it's not my main priority. Like, this is my main priority. I want to work in basketball for the rest of my life, as long as I can. Just trying to enjoy this season, last year as a student manager, maybe potentially GA. But just trying to work hard as I can, try to stand out. But I'm expecting, a lot of good this year from this team, and this staff has been amazing, just welcoming me in and treating me like one of their own, like they've known me forever. It's been super, super rewarding and makes, me want to work even harder every single day. I love how tight-knit everything is. That's one thing. Another thing you guys should. This team. Everybody loves each other. Like everyone's locked in. Everyone knows each other. Through like a book. So just excited. It's really rewarding to work for the staff and these players. And I hope to get you guys out to a game. We got a Big 12 is no joke. So a lot of great conference games. I say it's the best conference in the country. So. Yeah, just future plans. Just want to stick with it, whether that's coaching, whether that's front office, whether that's scouting. I'll do it all. I don't care. Like, I'm with whatever it is. I just want to be around the game. I want to give back to the game, This game's giving me so much. So that's really the goal. Just try to stay consistent, stay in the sport that I love. And if that's the case, then I won't even feel like working. It won't even feel like a job at that point. So yeah, just school-wise last year, graduate's crazy how time flies. Just trying to get through everything, and yeah, man, that's pretty much it. Just trying to stay consistent with basketball and stuff. It's something that I don't take for granted. I don't take this opportunity for granted. This school means so much to me and my family. My parents went to ASU. They met there. All these people I know that went there. It means so much to me. So it's hard not to work for that. Just seeing that Pitchfork logo, seeing that Sun Devils text. It just makes me hungry. It just makes me motivated, and I want to do just so much for the program. If it was up to me, I'd stay with ASU forever, but we'll see what happens.
Alan, I can't thank you enough for joining us once again on Pass the Outlet. I know we're going to have you back for VSP Live pretty soon. I'll see you on the hardwood, man. I'll probably see you at some Sun Devil football games too, because I'll be out there with Chuz and the boys this season too.
At every game.
Okay, well, I mean,
so
I plan to be there at every game too, so I'm sure I'll see you soon, man. But
senior year, I've missed one game so far throughout my 3 years. So, and I wish I'd gone to it. It's funny, I didn't go because Diamondbacks won the World Series, but I want to win the game. But you will see me at every game, Mike. Do not worry. I'm not missing a game. Game days are my favorite day of the week during the season. It's an all day occurrence. So yeah, you'll see.
Beautiful, man. Well, we'll see you out there. We'll see you at Desert Financial Arena. Really appreciate you joining us tonight, man, and appreciate it. Like I said, have a good night, man. We'll see you soon.
Thank you so much, guys, for having me again. Peace out.
All right, see you, Alan. That was Arizona State men's basketball student manager Alan Alaaldin. What a great interview. I knew we were going to get some awesome insights, some big time stars that he's worked with, some relationships that he's had, being able to share the floor with some of these awesome players that have come through the doors over at Sun Devil Stadium. We're hoping that he has a wonderful, wonderful season for his senior year. But Chris, with that being said, I think it's time for the social swish, man. So I will pass the outlet to you, man. What do you got for us tonight?
Mike, you know that I go far and I go wide, and I get the news from around the net in the social swish. So I got some for you. Maybe I got a little bit of a sampling, so we'll see where the conversation takes us. But of course, we have to start with the happenings over the weekend. We teased it a little bit in the beginning, but of course, 2 Suns legends were inducted into the NBA Hall of Fame over the weekend in Amar'e Stoudemire and Coach Mike D'Antoni. What a huge moment. I didn't realize, Mike, I was telling you this yesterday, recording the Heat Check podcast. I did not realize that Mike D'Antoni is 75 years old, or 75 years young, depending on how you look at it, but still sharp as a tack. His speech was great. His interviews were great. And of course, you got to see a lot of the old friends there, and Steve and Sean Marion and the like. But what a huge moment for them and for the Suns organization, for these guys to be inducted with that Phoenix Suns air to them. So, Mike, I mean, obviously, Alan kind of, put it out there that this was kind of the era in which we grew up in the Steve, Amar'e, Mike D'Antoni era. What did this mean to you as a Suns fan to kind of see them be inducted this weekend?
It was huge because this was truly a part of my childhood. I grew up as a 14-year-old kid rebounding the basketball for Amar'e Stoudemire, who himself was pretty much a kid. I think that he had just turned 21 by the time that I was on the floor as a ball boy. And we know, that first season that I was a ball boy was 2004, 2005, when the Suns hired Mike D'Antoni and literally changed the game that we see today with the 7 seconds or less Suns. It's awesome to see how Hall of Fames honor the true evolutions of the game. Because that a lot of people want to have the conversations, well, how is this person making it to the Hall of Fame if they don't have all of these stats to back it up, or if they don't have a championship to go along with it? Amar'e Stoudemire was a true trendsetter for the power forward position with the way that he was an athletic freak, could attack the basket. And he just, you also, hey, he notches off the thought process of, well, champions should get in. He went over and won a championship in Israel. So if you want to have those arguments, be my guest. Same with Mike D'Antoni, man. He had an absolutely stellar 17 years in Italy as a player and a coach, won multiple times. And that basically gave him the opportunity and the notoriety to be given the opportunity to come to Phoenix. It was awesome. I'll stick with Mike right now because, I thought he had, like most of these, Hall of Fame inductees, they're thanking everybody in their lives. But like you said, there was really, really big connotations to Phoenix, to Jerry Colangelo, Brian Colangelo, the city of Phoenix. Everything about this weekend at the Naismith Hall of Fame was absolutely special if you were a Phoenix Suns fan. And if you haven't watched both of these speeches by Mike D'Antoni and Amar'e Stoudemire, once this stream is done, get onto YouTube and watch them, because if you're around our age and you grew up watching Suns basketball, do yourself a favor and go down memory lane, listening to these guys talk about those special times, man. It really was special.
It was remarkable, man. Like the 7 seconds or less Suns are like in the conversation for like the top, if nothing else, like revolutionizing the game. And people talk about obviously Steve Nash's back-to-back MVPs and how they were just robbed of the opportunity to get a championship because of that Spurs series. It's widely believed that had that suspension not taken place, the Suns would have won that Western Conference Finals and made it into the championship. And anybody coming out of the West at that time was going to win the finals. Now, we can't rewrite history. You can play the coulda, woulda, shoulda game all day long. But even still, with everything they did accomplish, still widely deserving. Like we talk about this with all the Hall of Fames. Like it's not the NBA Hall of Fame. It is the Basketball Hall of Fame. And these guys' resumes speak for themselves, from their international work to what they did in the league and beyond. And that's a great call out on Amar'e. Like he came right out of high school, one of, if not the last, but one in close to the last group of guys that were able to do that, coming out in 2002. And Mike, looking at the roster from when he was a rookie, how do some of these names sound? Tom Gugliotta, Jake Zakalidis, Jake Voskuhl, Stephon Marbury. Like these guys were a part of some fun Phoenix Suns teams. And the 7 seconds or less Suns walked so that the Golden State Warriors could run. And I remember hearing, during the Golden State dynasty and like Steve Nash kind of talking about it, where he was like, man, if I had the green light to shoot like Steph Curry does, like Steve could have been Steph Curry before Steph Curry, quite honestly. And he did. If you go back, like Mike said, if you go back and watch some of the gameplay from those eras, like you could see where the argument could be made. So really happy for those two. I think it's well deserved. And I mean, huge for the Valley. Like obviously they went on to, coach elsewhere and play elsewhere, but you can tell like they still hold the Valley near and dear to their heart. And it's awesome to see, man, because for a while there, that was one of my criticisms of a lot of players that leave, is they leave and they never look back. But you get guys like those, and like a Larry Fitzgerald, not to bring football into this, but they really, here for the Valley. So you love to see it. But Mike, it was a big weekend for Valley basketball for more than just one reason, or two reasons, I guess. There was a third reason. If we take a look on the women's side, the GOAT herself, the all-time points leader, Diana Taurasi, from 20 seasons playing in the WNBA to now forever being in the rafters for the Phoenix Mercury franchise. She had her number 3 jersey retired and was inducted into the Ring of Honor. I know my manager at my 9 to 5, she was in attendance, and I was talking to her today, said that the stadium was nearly at capacity, except for maybe some of the corners of the upper deck, but a ton of people and a lot of stars in attendance. I saw Devin Booker, Larry Fitz, the whole gang out there in support of DT, and joining the rafters with, I didn't realize this, her wife Penny Taylor is already in the Mercury Ring of Honor. So wow, her kids are gonna, grow up and be like, wow, my parents are incredibly talented and the GOATs, and they're gonna go to Mercury games and Suns games and see their parents up in the rafters. And I think that's freaking awesome. Mike, tell us a bit about what you think of DT getting her jersey retired and inducted.
Well, first, talk about the expectations of those kids to be hoopers, because their parents are two of the best, and including the best, the greatest women's professional basketball player, the greatest women's basketball player of all time. It was special, Chris. I had the time to be able to sit down and watch kind of the ceremonies. It started at halftime. They did a quick little kind of like 8-minute section during halftime where Matt Ishbia presented Diana with a custom pair of Nikes. I don't know if you've seen these floating through social media, but they were like a mishmash of a couple of different things. There was the FC Barcelona Nike Air Force One upper, which is a style nod to the Kobe's. And then they had parts of the Lakers Nike LeBron 8 sole, and the air unit was the Nike LeBron 10 Lava outsole. And it was basically to kind of honor Diana with her relationship that she had with Kobe Bryant, who famously nicknamed her White Mamba. So you can see on the tongues of that shoe, it says White Mamba right there as well. And I think the other pair says DT. But then it also honors the shoe that she wore for the entirety of her career, which was the LeBron James line. There were multiple different pairs that were kind of PEs for her that Nike released, which unfortunately I waited too long to grab one pair because they were gone before I knew it. But then there was also Bridget Pettis, who was, one of the OG Phoenix Mercury, who came and gave a speech of gratitude, and she talked about two specific things that she expected from her teammates. And that was showing up with a good attitude and giving your best effort. She said Diana exemplified that every day. And that makes sense when you're considered one of the greatest. But then after the game, broadcaster Kevin Ray kind of acted like the master of ceremonies. Kevin Ray has been a staple in the Valley. If you watch Phoenix Suns or Phoenix Mercury basketball, he's been around for decades. And he basically was the one who called her entire career while she was with the Mercury. But it was cool, man. They had speeches from the original president of the WNBA, Bo Ackerman, the chief executive officer of USA Basketball, Jim Tooley, and then, of course, Penny Taylor, her wife, said some words and was choked up to start. But then Diana had the floor. And my favorite thing about that was her giving praise, Chris, to not only the fans, but the city of Phoenix. And she basically said that she knew ever since she came here in 2004 that this was the place for her. And she was so grateful for how it helped shape her into the person that she is. And that she is very grateful to be considered a true Phoenician. So are you kidding me? Take that to the bank as an Arizona sports fan. The unarguable greatest women's basketball player of all time is one of ours and forever will be. It was a special moment yesterday. I can't wait to the next time I go into the stadium and look up and see that number 3 up there, and I'll snap some photos, put it on our socials and all that good stuff. I'm sad we weren't able to make it out there, but I wasn't going to miss listening to the stories of Diana Taurasi because she truly is the greatest, man.
Yeah, like truly incredible that we got to have her in the Valley for her full career. Obviously, kind of, paved the way for women going overseas to get more money in the off season and really started that trend. And I mean, you look at her resume, man, like I have to pull this up right now. If you go and Google Diana Taurasi, go to her Wikipedia page, look at this resume, dude. Oh my goodness. I'm not even going to go through the whole thing, but obviously 3-time champ, 2 times final MVP, 11-time All-Star, 10-time first team, 4-time second team, rookie of the year, 6-time EuroLeague champ. Like the list goes on and on. Like Diana Taurasi is a proven winner, and something like Alan was talking about with his fandom being loyal. Diana Taurasi was loyal to the Valley, loyal to the Mercury, and so it only makes sense that they induct her into the Ring of Honor and retire her jersey just 2 years after she hangs it up. And man, like it's always hard with players like that. Like you want them to continue to play, but obviously she did her time and didn't retire till she was like 42 years old. So like truly incredible, and we're just blessed to have been able to have her and witness greatness. Honestly, like getting praise from players like Kobe Bryant on the men's side, obviously the respect from Devin Booker, and just throughout sports speaks for itself.
Yeah. And, I always talk about my Phoenix Suns ball boys days. I think sometimes I always forget, too, that I was a ball boy for the Mercury, too. I was a ball boy for the season when they won their first ever WNBA championship. I was on the
Wow.
floor when they beat the Detroit Shock. So, I have just utmost respect for Diana. I got to see her work right in front of myself, and it helped shape the player that I was as well, seeing how hard she worked and kept people accountable and her teammates accountable around her too, man. It's special. This weekend, Chris, I think I tried to not take for granted because, yes, sometimes it's hard because you see Father Time clicking in front of you, but it's amazing to be able to celebrate some of those people who have helped shape you, not only as a ball player, but as a person, at how you exemplify yourself and project yourself out to the world as well. And I think these three individuals specifically have done a great job from a basketball standpoint and are more than well deserved where they sit now in immortality. It was a great weekend, man.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. And it's awesome, like in like the off season and like the downtime when obviously the games aren't going on. We're pretty far removed from the finals, let alone like the off season as a whole. To be able to still have like this type of thing to talk about and to come about is great all around. And super stoked for DT and for the organization and for the Valley as a whole. But Mike, I got a few more here for you on the social swish. I know this long interview went a little long, but I think this topic I think was important to talk about, and it was a story that came out I think last week. But I wanted to know your opinion on it, and it's related to Suns owner Matt Ishbia and his primary business venture, United Wholesale Mortgage. Sounds like they're in a bit of trouble. It was originally reported, I believe, in Housewire. But I do have this article from Yahoo Sports pulled up, and it says Phoenix Suns fans may have seen a lot of headlines this week about Matt Ishbia's wealth taking a hit. While the reason has little to do with basketball, it is worth paying attention to. Ishbia, the Suns and Mercury's controlling owner, built much of his fortune through United Wholesale Mortgage, or UWM. According to Housewire, the mortgage company's stock plunged after it reported a rough $603 million loss tied to an interest rate hedging strategy connected to its failed attempt to acquire Two Harbors mortgage servicing rights. UWM also announced a $2.05 billion capital partnership with Oaktree Capital Management and suspended its common stock dividend. For Suns fans, the obvious question is whether this could affect the team. The short answer, not really, at least for now. And it goes on to explain that they're kind of disconnected. It's still doing well. Matt Ishbia had kind of gambled a little bit, or maybe not Matt Ishbia, but United Wholesale Mortgage kind of gambled a little bit on the Federal Reserve coming out and lowering interest rates. They decided to keep interest rates steady, and it sounds like they might even go up in the near future. But as far as Matt Ishbia is concerned and his troubles with his mortgage company, Mike, what are your levels of concern despite what the Yahoo article here says?
I'm a little concerned, obviously, because I think there can be a trickle-down effect in the long term for this. But, there's been other media outlets who have talked about, honestly, it's like water under the bridge right now. Short term, don't even think about it. But it brings to question, well, first, this isn't a question. This might be the worst bet of all time, unfortunately, for Matt Ishbia's personal brand, for his company. Having to go the capital investment route is going to be interesting for his mortgage company as a whole, but we're not here to talk about that. The one thing that I wonder is Matt Ishbia has utilized the majority of his capital to create a wonderful fan experience, right? The $1 tacos, the $1 hot dogs. Are they $1? I can't remember. Or $3. That they're pretty darn cheap. And for what you pay for, it's worth the price. And it's something that we have just not seen, especially as the economic standards within the world continue to grow. Everything else becomes more expensive. And we know how the arena or stadium experience has always been so darn expensive. So this was awesome to see. What happens with that, right? For the Phoenix Suns, Matt Ishbia has not ever worried about having to pay luxury taxes. If his company continues to be hemorrhaging money and he's not able to pay for luxury tax penalties over the thresholds because now he's just a multimillionaire, not a billionaire, what does that say for the Phoenix Suns? He's really hasn't been caring about writing those extra checks or that extra $20 million per year to Bradley Beal because he is flushed. What does that mean for the future? And I know the two businesses are disconnected, but some of the extra stuff that Matt Ishbia has been doing as the owner is with his own personal capital. How does that change how the Phoenix Suns function and what the fan experience might be in the future? For right now, over the next couple of years, it's not going to change much. We'll have to continue to monitor the market and his own company, though, to see how things change in the future. But I think one thing is for sure, and a lot of people have been saying this, Matt Ishbia loves being a professional sports owner, and he loves being a professional basketball sports owner. He will do everything in his power to continue to own the Phoenix Suns and the Phoenix Mercury. So overall, I don't think there's a lot of worries, but it's definitely something that we're always going to keep our eye on.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you said, Mike. So I'll keep my thoughts short. I think, there's a lot of owners out there that kind of see their sports teams as little side projects. I think although this might be his secondary source of income, it's still a revenue generator. It's not like he's losing money on the Suns and this is just a passion project. Like, make no mistake, the Phoenix Suns franchise is making him money. At the same time, like UWM and those stock dividend payouts were kind of bankrolling a lot of that stuff you talked about, because the dividends that they've suspended, he owns 80% of the common stock of this company. So if they're paying out all the stockholders or the shareholders, whatever the word is, then he's benefiting from 80% of those payouts, which he's then was turning around and reinvesting back into the Suns. But all in all, I do think it's a short-term thing. The stock market swings, the mortgage industry and the home market, it goes up and down. And so, yeah, maybe he gambled a little bit and trying to anticipate the future, but they'll make their adjustments and it'll come back down to earth. You can call it wishful thinking, but I think, you don't become a billionaire by accident. He's a pretty smart, savvy guy, and he's got a lot of advisors around him, I'm sure. And yeah, so it is funny. Like, on the heels of that news, they cut Haywood Highsmith, so it's like, oh, they're making room. But then they signed him today or yesterday, so he's right back with the team. But it seems like our roster is solidified. I don't expect any other moves to come down, and so they'll still remain under that luxury tax for this year, and we'll be just fine with the roster we have going forward. But Mike, that was the social swish news from around the net.
My man, Chris, you brought it today. We had to celebrate some of the legends being immortalized, obviously. And I think we got to do a little bit more celebrating. So today, for the outlet point guard, we have to break down the career of the man that truly stood tall and talented. Of course, folks, Stat, Amar'e Stoudemire. It's about time, Chris, that we actually go over a Phoenix Suns player. I think this is the first actual outlet point guard where we are going to deep dive somebody from the Phoenix Suns, and I couldn't be more excited that Stat is the first one today. But like we said, let's go to the beginning. Amar'e Stoudemire was born in Lake Wales, Florida. He was one of the final high school to the league prospects ever since the NBA made that change to players having to be at least 1 year removed from high school before they can put their name into the NBA draft. But his early life saw him move around a lot, from New York to North Carolina and to Florida. And a crazy thing too, Chris, he didn't begin playing basketball until the age of 14. I feel like I do hear that pretty common nowadays, I feel like, from some of these guys who have become more high-profile players over the past couple of years. But he transferred around a lot, man. He went between 5 different high schools in 2 states, 6 different times. But his final stop was at Cypress Creek High School in Orlando, Florida, and that's where he was put on the map. His senior year, he averaged 29 points, 15 rebounds, and 6 blocks per game. Just utterly dominant en route to the 2002 McDonald's All-American nod and being named Florida's Mr. Basketball. And he had originally committed to the University of Memphis, but he always, in the back of his mind, wanted to be a guy that jumped straight from high school to the league. So he later decommitted and declared for the 2002 draft, where he was chosen 9th overall by your Phoenix Suns. And the Suns era began with a bang. He averaged 13.5 points and 8.8 rebounds his rookie year, including a season-high 38 points versus the Minnesota Timberwolves, which at that time was a prep-to-pro player record. And Amar'e was named the 2003 NBA Rookie of the Year, beating out players like Caron Butler and Yao Ming, Chris. We always forget he beat out Yao Ming to be the Rookie of the Year that year. And he also was the first player drafted out of high school to ever win the award until the next year when LeBron James won it. But he continued to improve early on in his career. And then in year 3, the 2004-2005 season is when the explosion truly happened. Alongside running mates Steve Nash, Sean Marion, Joe Johnson, and Quentin Richardson, Amar'e was named to his first ever All-Star team and named to his first ever All-NBA team, where he helped lead the Suns to the Western Conference Finals. We're going to hear this a couple of times, where they eventually fell to the champion San Antonio Spurs. And there was a little bit of a tumultuous time where he had a microfracture surgery to clean up knee cartilage. A lot of people were worried, and he missed the entire 2005-2006 season, but it didn't matter. He came back with a vengeance. And he changed his number just like Devin Booker, but this time to Book's old number, where he went from 32 to 1. And this was actually his only All-NBA first team nod, which was the 2006-2007 season. And Chris, you know what happened that season. That season will forever go down in infamy, as Boris Diaw and Amar'e Stoudemire were famously suspended for Game 5 of the Western Conference semis against the San Antonio Spurs when they stepped onto the floor. Not even ran, like literally stepped onto the floor after Robert Horry hip-checked Steve Nash into the scoreboard. But Stoudemire's time in the Valley was filled with so many highs, but when you're here for long enough, more lows can come about too, which included when he went down for 8 weeks after a freak eye surgery that he had to have to repair his retina. But his time in the Valley just really cannot be denied, Chris. That is why he is in the Ring of Honor. But the second half of Stoudemire's NBA career included 5 years with the New York Knicks, alongside Carmelo Anthony, included the infamous Linsanity run. Then he had a second half season, specifically with the Dallas Mavericks in 2015. And then his final season was in Miami with the Heat. But his career didn't end there. Like we said, he went overseas and signed a 2-year deal with Hapoel Jerusalem, helping them to a Israeli Basketball League Cup in 2016. And Chris, I didn't know this, but he became the co-owner. He co-owns that team now. Awesome. That's amazing. But his final stop came in 2020, where Amar'e helped Maccabi Tel Aviv win the Israeli Basketball Premier League Championship and was named MVP, marking off a Hall of Fame career. The 6-time NBA All-Star, named to 5 All-NBA teams, the 2003 NBA Rookie of the Year, a 2004 USA bronze medalist at the Athens game, the 2-time Israeli Basketball Premier League champion, the Israeli Premier League Finals MVP. The number 32 is retired in the Phoenix Suns Ring of Honor with an NBA career stats average of 18 points per game, 7.8 rebounds per game, and 1.2 blocks per game. Undeniably, Amar'e Stoudemire is a true Hall of Famer. Chris, when you think of stat, man, what are some of the first things you think of?
Oh man, it's just the athleticism. Obviously, the 7 seconds or less Suns era. This is maybe terrible, but one of the memories that I always have and think of when we talk about Amar'e Stoudemire is the slam dunk contest that he participated in and how he looped in Steve Nash, and he had at the headbutter and like the Steve Nash and the kick. I don't think he won that slam dunk contest, but man, like some exciting slams to put him alongside of Steve Nash and Sean Marion. Like, yeah, he could knock one in from outside periodically and a little bit of a mid-range, but mostly known for what you're seeing here is finishing at the rim and being on the receiving end of one of those silky smooth Steve Nash passes. Him and Steve were kind of like, I mean, if you talk about like a guard forward combo or a big guy and a little guy, for lack of a better word, you kind of get Stockton and Malone vibes a little bit, and kind of in the air of those types of duos when it comes to the 1-2 punch. And man, like this is just getting my juices flowing. Like this is prime Suns basketball. This is what, like we were talking about with Alan, this is what really got me into basketball and solidified my Phoenix Suns fandom, is watching these two and their connection. And why I kind of like, we asked Alan who he kind of emulates his game after. Like I like to think that I emulate my game off of Steve Nash, watching those clean passes in the court vision. We're talking about Amar'e Stoudemire. Man, you mentioned he won Rookie of the Year. He was the last Phoenix Sun to do it, and one of only 3 in 2002-2003 season. The first time in 25 years. The only other 2 are Walter Davis and Alvin Adams. So some pretty rarefied air. You see Stephon Marbury just absolutely disgusted with how nasty that slam was. And even Amar'e getting the around the back pass to Shaq there. Man, I love to see it. That's what I'm talking about with the range too. I hope he called bank on that one. But man, I just think like it was such a fun time to be a Phoenix Suns fan, and watching Amar'e and his athleticism and his ability to finish at the rim was just truly remarkable and something special, and something that I'll always hold dear to my heart. But the last thing I'll say is, where do you put the apostrophe? Where do you put it?
It's after the R, before the E. That's where the apostrophe should be, Chris. I mean, I've been listening to you the whole time too, but I've also been going in an absolute, I'm in the DeLorean right now watching some of these clips. You know, the famous 3-point bank against the San Antonio Spurs, the huge dunk on Anthony Tolliver in Golden State in such a key moment in that game, the dunk on Michael Olowokandi of the Los Angeles Clippers, you know, his work that he did against the San Antonio Spurs. I had the absolute pleasure and honor of being on the floor watching Amar'e Stoudemire grow into the perennial all-star and all-NBA talent that he eventually became towards the tail end and the middle of his time with the Phoenix Suns. Sometimes I have own debates with myself where I'm like, who was the better player? Was it 32 Amar'e or number 1 Amar'e? And it's funny, we're going to start to have those same dialogues about Devin Booker in a couple of years as well. But Amar'e, number 32, was the young, flashy, dominant dunker. But number 1 Amar'e was truly the full package. He had completely fleshed out his game. He had started to step out to those 15 to 20 foot jumpers on a really consistent basis. He could go get you a bucket in so many different styles and different ways that nobody at a 6'10" power forward position frame truly did the same way that Amar'e Stoudemire did. My biggest regrets, obviously, is that he never was able to win a championship. There's so many different guys from that era, but this is almost so worthy and so rewarding now that he has joined the Immortalized in the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame, and that the voters truly understood how much of a difference maker, an absolute trendsetter, and one of the greatest power forwards to ever do it that Amar'e Stoudemire truly was. So it was, man, I remember, you know, there's always still kind of that sour taste in your mouth for when he left, because the Suns didn't want to pay him. They were so worried about his consistent knee injuries. And we had talked about, you know, he had the retina detachment where he had to have surgery on that, which forced him into goggles for the rest of his career. And I know he was getting down towards the tail end, but what Amar'e did for 8 years, I thought was more than deserved of what he was asking for. And unfortunately, Robert Sarver was who he was. And we've gone down that road plenty of times. We don't have to go down that again. But we know he had some kind of injury struggles in the last couple of seasons with New York, but he still made 2 All-Stars. He still was one of the best power forwards in the league. And I just wish we would have seen that through, because his final great years was in 2012. And that was Nash's last season too, when we made the Western Conference Finals. So, man, it would have just been special if he would have hit that 10-year mark in Phoenix, had that one last run, and who knows what would have happened. But one of the greats, man. Chris, before we end for the night and shut down the outlet point guard, do you got any last thoughts when it comes to Amar'e Stoudemire?
Yeah, just like I echo a lot of the same sentiments. It is such a shame that those teams didn't reach the pinnacle, and even the opportunity to play in a finals, let alone how much they deserve to win one. It was such a tough time in the league and in the Western Conference in particular. You saw a lot of those teams in the highlights. You had Kobe and the Lakers, Dirk and the Mavericks, Tim Duncan and the Spurs, like some true legends and bona fide guaranteed Hall of Famers. Some of those guys are already in the Hall of Fame. So he was a victim of the era he played in a lot of ways. But I think a lot of people forget just how nice his game was. Like, just watch that highlight reel we played, whether it was finishing on the offensive side or swatting shots on the defensive side. Like, Amar'e was a true generational talent, and to come straight out of high school and to be able to continue to develop his game in the league, like, he was special for sure. And the last thing I'll say is, you've mentioned the retina detachment a couple times. That makes me wince a little bit. As someone who wears contacts and I'm constantly touching my eyeballs, the thought of having my retinas detach and losing my eyesight is scary. But I am glad that he was able to get the surgery, get it corrected, and didn't lose his vision, because that could be very serious. But man, one of the GOATs, definitely near and dear to my heart, as my fandom flourished with those '05 Suns and beyond.
And I always remember too, when he was going through the rehab for those 8 weeks, when he had his eye surgery, he had to be like laying down for like 16 hours per day. It was something crazy, but it's no debate. He is one of the greats. He is absolutely one of the greatest power forwards to ever play NBA, but he's one of the greatest basketball players to ever play the game. But yeah, like you guys saw in that graphic, I had a 2002 Topps rookie card from Amar'e Stoudemire with these old, the cool 1990s, 2000s, like color pop basketballs with the old school Phoenix Suns logo, because it was right before we changed to, what is it, the purple and gray jerseys. Man, Chris, I got a lot of Amar'e signed stuff. Like, I got to show you this. You know, I don't even know if they make Beckett basketball anymore, but this was right during his rookie year when I think he had just won it. So I was in the cards. Obviously, that's what we've been doing on the outlet point guard. But I had this awesome Beckett basketball magazine, and a beautiful signature from Amar'e with that number 32 back in the day. But yeah, it was great to finally get a Phoenix Sun on this list, Chris. I mean, shoot, I can show you this too. Like, we got a lot of old guys from the Phoenix Suns we can go through. I mean, you look at this quick collection here. You got Nash, you got Sean Marion, you got Joe, Quentin. That group will always hold a very special place in my heart, obviously, because it was the starting lineup for that 04-05 Suns in my first year as a ball boy. But you got some of the great ones too, man. Leandro Barbosa, Boris Diaw, old GM James Jones I got there. And then I threw Raja Bell on there. At some point, I'm going to have to tell my Raja Bell story. It is a funny story, man. It's a funny story, but the outlet point guard is going strong, and I'm very happy that we finally got to talk about Amar'e Stoudemire. But Chris, with that being said, we've reached the end of Pass the Outlet episode 41. I want to give you the floor one more time to break it down, and then we'll head it out for the night.
Yeah, man, I feel like this was a great episode. Went a little bit longer than we normally do on here on Past the Outlet, but great to have Alan on. It's always a pleasure. I look forward to having him on in the future. And like you said, I'll be gone for basically the entire month of September. So counting on you to hold down the fort for all of Valley Sports Plug. I know you're gonna have some great guests on. You guys are gonna have some great streams. So I'm looking forward to watching those back on my various flights and travels. And yeah, I can't wait to get back to it. Probably next Pass the Outlet would likely be in October, but man, that's about the time the season's going to be kicking off. So I'm very excited and appreciate you, Mike. This was fun.
Appreciate you as always, man. Don't worry. I'll put the team on my back while you're away. You're in good hands. Like you said, we're going to have some special guests. Maybe we sneak in a special Pass the Outlet when you come back at the end. Don't want to force your hand. We'll see. But training camp's going to be starting basically when you come back, Chris. So there's going to be plenty of stuff to talk about when it comes down to NBA basketball, college basketball, and beyond. But we appreciate everybody who's joined us tonight. Anybody who is watching back on the playback, who is listening on podcast streaming services, make sure you like this video, subscribe to us here on Valley Sports Plug YouTube, and follow us at AZ_VSP on all socials. But once again, I'm Michael Benjamin. That's Chris Patrick. We appreciate you guys. Have a good night. And as always, go Suns.